The content presented is for entertainment purposes only. Some content may not be suitable for all viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. You know what's really interesting is kind of following along with what's been going on with Louder with Crowder, aka Steven Crowder, and he now has a second strike against his YouTube channel, seemingly because I actually watched the episode that apparently everybody was so upset over, or whoever looked at his stuff with Carrie Lake, which is really interesting. Alex Berenson, who is a journalist, is now unbanned. And he's rocking it on Substack, which is really interesting. And a little bit about Resident Evil and why it's canceled. I would love to hear you guys' thoughts in the description down below. Hello, everybody. Jay Rhymes here with the Periodic Review. Today's episode is sponsored by viewers like you, so thank you. If we earn your subscription today, don't forget to hit that red subscribe button, click that damn bell, and turn on your notifications so you don't miss a content release. Best way to support the channel is to share your favorite live stream or video, crush that like button, and leave a comment down below. Send all of your topic ideas, articles, and videos to and links to theperiodicreview@gmail.com. All of our links are in the description down below, so welcome to the show. So as you guys can see, it is just little old me today. Mr. J Rhymes is going solo. Mr. Alakai is at work. He had a schedule change, and so we're kind of trying to figure out what would be the best day for all of us to get together again so that the Periodic Review crew can continue. The lovely Miss Rianne in in first chair. She has a migraine, so she will not be joining us today, sadly. I hope she gets to feeling better. Migraines are no fun, and unfortunately, she's suffered with those all her life, and so it's unfortunate when those happen. So we're just gonna let her rest for the rest of the day. So our first topic today, I'm just kind of winging it, so we'll see what happens. Usually, I do like to have an outline set up. But in the event of the most recent change with schedule and Rianne being gone, and I just want to make sure that I keep putting content out at the cost of even myself saying something stupid and not being fully prepared. So let's just go ahead and jump right into our first topic, which is Louder with Crowder, who's been on YouTube since, around 2006, 2008, somewhere around there. And he's been doing like comedy sketch videos and doing more political stuff, and has grown into a very huge following, not only on YouTube, but also on Rumble, through his website, through Mug Club, as well as on Blaze TV, getting hundreds of thousands of views, if not, having millions at this point. And it's been really interesting to kind of watch his content. It's very interesting. It's kind of like a blend of like a comedic sketch show, blended in with like the news and with politics. There's a lot of jokes, especially at Joe Biden and the administration's expense. So it's actually pretty funny to watch on occasion. I don't watch it all the time just because he does get very polarizing. He does get very vocal, and very seemingly aggressive with his voice, and so I kind of feel like he's very polarizing. So I try not to watch him too much, just because I like listening to people who have level heads and are smart about it. But what's really interesting about Crowder's content is that he always has his receipts. He always has his links on his website. And so he definitely does his best to portray the truth, which I think is really, really important, especially in these days. And, with it being a blend of journalism and hilarity, I really feel like he does a really good job. And I really, love Dave Lando and the rest of the crew. They have wonderful and interesting things to talk about. I think it's it's a really great breath of fresh air sometimes when they sit down and they really talk about, their religious beliefs. They talk about the importance of, having God not only in your personal life, but, in any way that you live. And I just feel like it's really interesting that, he's literally being attacked seemingly for nothing. And of course, we're going to go into our other topic a little bit later, but I think what was really interesting is that they just had, the Arizona, I believe she is, is going to be governor, I guess at some point, or at least is running for governor in the state of Arizona, which of course is my my home state, where I was born and raised most of my life in. And I remember listening to those topics, and they really, what's really interesting about how YouTube portrays what they feel is incorrect or they feel is wrong is you just get an outright suspension, or even sometimes a ban. And there really isn't any context as far as like, okay, where exactly in this video is there controversy? Where exactly in this video are you feeling like we, broke our terms of service? Where exactly in this video do you feel we had a misstep? And what's really interesting, especially when you get these emails, or at least, I personally haven't experienced it. Hopefully I never will, but in this climate, you never know. You just kind of keep posting stuff and just cross your fingers and hope for the best, and then prepare for the worst, obviously. But there really isn't a lot of input as far as like, okay, well, where is this at? And it's interesting because the video that they said that there was something wrong in, it was really funny. The next stream, they actually kind of like broke it down, just like, okay, well, maybe it was this, where she stated that Joe Biden is his presidency is illegitimate, which I thought was really interesting. This is what she said. I'm just quoting her. I often think back to 1,000 Mules and watching that documentary with the Souza. I believe that's his name. And although watching it, there was a couple of times where I feel like, okay, you guys are kind of overreaching here. You're just kind of drawing conclusions, and you're not just, portraying the data, sharing, the things that you've gathered, and then just saying, okay, you guys go figure out, what you think it is. And this is kind of the problem I kind of feel with documentaries now, is that they're trying to portray a thought or a line of thinking or an ideology or a political view, or a narrative. And it's not really the line of, hey, this is the data that we found. We found it very interesting. You guys can decide what you want to decide about it. And it was, it was very leading into, there was some shenanigans going on with these drop boxes. They weren't being, many of them were not, the cameras on them were not working. They used the data through their cell phones to kind of track their, where they went, and they believe that they're going to these different spots where they were picking up different, voting stuff that have already been like filled out. And these allegedly, I want to say allegedly, because I don't know 100%, but I have my beliefs. And it's really interesting to see that they took some time of getting multiples of these in backpacks and then shoving them into, these drop boxes for voting, which is highly suspect, which is, at the very least, at the most, this is, the most, compelling evidence that has ever been shown through a documentary of voter fraud. And at the very least, and that's a smoking gun, but at the very least, it shows that we have some holes in our voting system that need to be plugged up and they need to be fixed. At the very least, at least look into it and make sure that, things are up to par, especially in these bigger states that have, very large votes, and can really swing one way or the other. And I think that's why, places like Arizona, are so very, very important. And this the interview wasn't terrible. I think, we should be able to say these kinds of things on social media. I believe that we should be able to openly discuss, okay, well, these are our thoughts on the presidency. Here's my evidences, and what do you think? And I think a lot of times, we just don't have a lot of time to do a ton of research and a lot of like in-depth looks at what's going on in the world. And so a lot of times we just get kind of the tip of the iceberg. We get just kind of the headlines a lot of times. And I've been guilty of this, where I just read the headlines and go, oh, wow, isn't that interesting? But I don't read the article and learn that it's something completely different, or not something that makes complete sense and doesn't give you the full picture until you actually read the full article, number one. Number two, it's also really important to check the sources. And I think, places like, I'm sorry to say, people are going to disagree with me, but Fox News, people like, Steven Crowder and his crew, they always have the receipts. They have the places where they've got the information, they have the data, they have the forms that are backing up what they are saying. And what's really interesting and kind of bugs me, because I really want to look at the other side. I really do want to look at CNN. And when I'm looking at these articles and when I'm reading them, sometimes I do use them to do some commentary on, but oftentimes I go and look at their sources, and their sources are basically sourcing back to articles that are on CNN. And so it's kind of really difficult to take places like CNN seriously. And I hope, we've been hearing that they're going to be kind of cleaning up shop there, and hopefully they do in the future. I would love to see a very serious, left side of things that are reasonable. Obviously, we don't want, another Louder with Crowder on the left-hand side. We definitely want somebody kind of like Joe Rogan, and Joe Rogan is, he's kind of a moderate Democrat, I think at most, and at best he's probably considered himself an independent and just kind of leaning one way or the other, depending on his views and his experiences, just like anybody else does. But it's really interesting to see that there's definitely some shenanigans going on. There's definitely, and I don't think it's really happening for the smaller creators. Actually, I take that back. I'll just kind of share you guys my experiences. So I did a couple of Dirty 30s a couple of weeks back, and one of them was on the Mar-a-Lago stuff, and the other one was that there is an outright war, not only on words, but against the Republicans and against the right by these left-leaning ideologues, not only in the quote-unquote mainstream media. We can call it corporatized media. I think it's more accurate. But also the big tech companies are also against all these individuals who have very, very big voices, very, very big platforms. They have, a shit ton of followers. And it seems like, they're the ones that are getting targeted. And there's a lot of great examples on it. I feel like they did that against Joe Rogan, and he only got bigger. I think Spotify, probably under penalty of the government coming after them, they got rid of 20 episodes. Whether the government's involved or not, I don't know. That's my allegings. That's kind of my tinfoil hat coming out right there. But they got rid of the ones where he says those words that, apparently white people can't say. And I think that's a bit racist, but I don't think anybody should say it, because I think it's very disparaging, especially for people, that were enslaved, not only by Americans, but even their own people. And I think it's a terrible word. I don't think anybody should be using it. But it's really interesting is that I listened to all those episodes, literally a month or two before all this stuff happened. And it was really interesting because he was literally just posing questions and saying, hey, what about this? Why can't, people that are not, that don't have the darker skin say this. Like, it doesn't make any sense to him. And I think it's really interesting that he was being very genuine. Sure, I think he was doing it for clicks. Sure, I think he was doing it because, it's an outrageous thing to say. And this day and age, apparently white people can't say it. So, like, I digress. I mean, it's neither here nor there. And then, of course, with the whole COVID stuff, talking about the COOF, as well as the use of different drugs that have been approved for many other things previously, and then coming after him, and definitely CNN spreading a lot of like outright lies about what he did with said medicines to help him get better, just basically trying to cancel him. And what's really interesting, especially somebody who's I feel is as genuine as Joe Rogan, is that it only made him stronger. I think during the time when he quote unquote were trying to cancel him, not only did Spotify back him up and just put on these stupid little things about CDC guidelines and stuff like that, so you can like reference to the government website, removing like 20 or so episodes. I think it was actually a bit more. I could be wrong. I think it was like closer to like 40 or 50, but I could be wrong. And just watching how that happened. And he said that during that time, I think it was only like a span of like 2 or 3 months that it was like really hot and bothersome for him for a bit. He just stopped going on social media. And if he did, he would just go for a little bit and he would post a couple of things and then he would just close it. Like he didn't even engage with it. And then watching his numbers just skyrocket. I think he said about 2 million more subscribers during that time. And that's been the most explosive growth even that he's had like in years. And I was just like, this is absolutely crazy. And I like listening to him, even though like sometimes I'm yelling at my at my stereo in my car because I don't agree with some of his views, but it's definitely another view and it challenges my views, and sometimes I feel like I could come to a conclusion where we can both agree on specific things, but definitely would disagree on many other things. I'm kind of getting a little bit away from my topic here, but I really do believe that there's some shenanigans going on, and some of these bigger creators, I think they are definitely targeting certain people. I think even the smaller creators are feeling it with using certain words, certain terms, using certain people's names, like they're either being omitted. I had 2 videos that went out and nobody was notified that we went live, so nobody saw the live stream, which was really unfortunate. So it's just kind of one of those things. Like you got to figure out, like there's something going on, and this kind of comes into this the second part of this podcast. As I get a little bit of water. All right, I think I'm going to try to push to 45 minutes. We'll see how it goes. I really want to get up to that 1 hour mark, but I'm going to have to prepare a little bit better. So the next person I want to talk about is Alex Berenson. He is back on Twitter after a very long ban. Berenson. So he's kind of been labeled, it seems, by the left as the vaccine skeptic. And I know there's a lot of other people that we could probably put that label on as well, even Joe Rogan. And it's been really interesting, especially since I sat down and I actually listened to that podcast, and I was floored when I was listening to the podcast. I was listening with captivated ears. Like it bugged me that I was delivering packages during that time and I had to go in and out of my car because I really did not want to miss a thing. So apparently his story is that he was banned by Twitter a while back because he was saying, certain things that like, Macs do not work. It was also a time where, the quote unquote poke was actually was working well for people who were very, very old or, had, many comorbidities even. And it was working well for the first like 3 or so months. And then they definitely saw a downturn to the point where, when the other variants came around, that was much more, difficult for people to get over, that it was not even helping at all. And then even with the subsequent boosters that came out, the CDC even, came, and the FDA came in and actually shut down some of these mRNA quote unquote medicines. I'm just going to call them quote unquote medicines. And there was a lot of people that were very skeptical up through all of this. And it was really interesting because this person was banned because of his skepticism. And then just recently, they had apparently a court hearing or something, and it was shown that this person was being outright attacked. And what was interesting, and I think it was really smart about the judge that actually was overseeing this particular thing that was going on between Alex and Twitter, is that they through, I guess, some kind of legal term called discovery, I guess apparently they're going to have to release all the things that Twitter had against him and vice versa, Alex towards them. And they basically got to see everything that was going on either side. And what was really interesting, and I actually checked the Twitter, he actually has the receipts where internally Twitter was basically fighting for Alex to stay on Twitter and basically saying he's not doing anything wrong. He's not inciting any violence. He's not, misleading anybody. He's backing it up with information. And what was really interesting is that the government said it. So the White House actually contacted Twitter, unknown parties, of course. I don't think they mentioned who spoke to him, if it was anybody from the administration of Biden or whoever the case may be. So adversaries unknown actually went in and talked to Twitter and just basically kept pressing on him to say, hey, why is this person still on Twitter? He's basically, sharing all this information that's misleading people, and it's causing, what do they call it right now? Vaccine hesitancy, or I guess they have in the past. Now it's kind of commonplace knowing that these things aren't working very well for many people. In fact, causing a lot of problems, especially people who, are fairly healthy, and even the young. They're causing, problems that definitely people are questioning whether they should get it or not. And, my position on it is, if you feel that you should get it, then you should get it. I think it should be made available for people who want to get it. I don't think that's a bad thing, but I think it is a bad thing if it turns out that this thing is not helpful, especially when it comes to long-term effects. Now, because of the powers that are given to those throughout our government to that were able to fast track this thing, to give the pokes to make it available for people, is not only did they get fast tracked, and it did get fast tracked by Trump, don't get me wrong, and then subsequently Biden kept it going, but it caused a lot of division, because not only were people well, I feel pretty healthy, I'm going to choose, this is what people, some people are saying, is that, I feel very healthy. I mean, I'm not, I don't have all these comorbidities, and so I'm going to take the chance. And if I do get the coof, I'm just going to push through it. The deaths are less than the common flu. It's basically what it's subsequently, boiled down to. We definitely are at the point where we're pretty close to herd immunity, is what they call it, when the majority of the people have, either have gotten it or have gotten through it. And, now we're all at that point now where we have those lovely antibodies. And so it's been really interesting to see these different individuals, and it's actually very fascinating. I think we should follow this. I think you guys should follow Alex Burnett on Twitter. I think you should, subscribe to his Substack. I'm actually going to be talking to my wife about that to see if we can, because we are subscribed to many other different things, but we just want to make sure that we have, this information, especially when information is true. But it's funny because now that he is back, he's releasing all of these documents, and of course, some of it's redacted. I'm pretty sure he doesn't want to. What's the term? They don't want to dox anybody or dead anybody. Or dead name, is that what it's called now? I don't know the lingo. It seems that words are changing as well as definitions, so it's kind of difficult to know what everybody and anybody is talking about these days, because it's just like, oh, we're just going to change the terms into stuff we've known for who knows, hundreds of years. Talking about specifically like terms and definitions and things like that. And so I want to follow this. I kind of want to see what's going to happen to this guy, because I really feel like it's important to follow these kinds of things and kind of see what's going to happen. Because if more and more people are going to be suing these companies and then subsequently getting all this information and finding out that the government is starting to overstep their boundaries and literally infringing on people's, not only God-given rights, but rights that have been given them through the Constitution of the United States of America. And it's going to be interesting what's going to happen. And what sucks is that oftentimes, especially for those that are in power, they're not held accountable for the things that they're doing. And I think that's something that's really important to kind of look at, not only what's happened in Afghanistan and Iraq, but if you're comparing and contrasting from previous wars, there are generals who were holding people 100% accountable. And if they made mistakes, they weren't employed anymore. They were demoted. They were, given a different job, and they were put somewhere else. And I think something that's really, really important, which I think this, current administration doesn't understand, is that the buck stops with them, especially when they're making these kinds of decisions and not only affecting people's lives, but this particular person, not only did he, lose a lot of money out of all of this, it being, removed from all this stuff, but loss of income, loss of relationships, loss of, I think he said that him and his wife were separated or something similar to that. Don't quote me on that. I'm not 100% sure, but it definitely affected a lot of, people's livelihoods when this stuff is happening. And not only from the hard left, the radical left with the government, but I believe it's also happening for those who are radicalized on the left, within that space. And I think, some of them are individuals who are Americans who have decided that they're going to continue to push their ideals, through words, and not only through words, but, if they find somebody that they don't like what they said, or they said mean words, or they said the wrong word to identify somebody, and now those people are losing their jobs. Now those people are, losing relationships and connections, and now they're unemployed. Now they can't make any money. And how does that affect them? It affects their family. Pretty soon the wife will get fed up and she'll leave with the kids, and pretty soon that person is all alone and can't find work because nobody will hire or touch them because they said bad things. And that really bugs me. I have a very, very hard time, watching people who are losing their livelihoods. I mean, thank God, some people with sense, when they go and they try to sue these companies or sue the individuals who came after them, and they're reinstated. I think that's a great testament to not only, the judicial system and laws and policies and procedures and stuff like that, but, how about all of those individuals who don't get reinstated, all those individuals who don't get to continue their lives, or at least start where they left off? A lot of these people who lose their jobs, they don't get their jobs back. They don't. They don't. And, and unfortunately that's a risk, that me and my wife and my best friend, we're taking right now. And I'll be honest with you, it is a little scary. it's a little scary that I might say the wrong word, and then all of a sudden I have a mob trying to attack me and call my work and try to get me fired or whatever the case may be. I think it's I don't think it started with social media, but I definitely believe that social media and these large tech conglomerates have definitely pushed the envelope of what homeland terrorism is. I mean, that's the only way I can describe people that call the police and call in a bomb threat. People who call into schools and tell them there's a shooter on there and there isn't. People that go to schools and their place of employment and unfortunately unload many rounds into people that are there. That's the only thing I can think of, and I think there are those people out there. I think it's very small. I think not only on top of that, I'm sure that there are many, bots out there or people that are, piloting, these different Twitter accounts or Facebook accounts or YouTube accounts, and their sole purpose is to go into these chat rooms or find large, this is my tinfoil hat I'm talking here. Some of these large individuals who have large followings and then try to put one against the other, and say the wrong things or yell and scream at them and tell them they're wrong because of the color of their skin. And unfortunately, that's the world that we live in right now. I definitely believe that there's something that happened, somewhere around the time of, I would probably say, America Online, when we had Instant Messenger. I think somewhere around there when we had chat rooms. It definitely took the space from, face to face or these different places where people are having conversations, and now they're having them behind closed doors and behind a computer with no access of seeing or talking to people, and they have an internet connection, and they can get on these different kind of websites, I don't even know if they're even existing anymore, but 4chan and 8chan and these different sites that, give you a lot more anonymity, where people don't know who you are. They don't know what you look like. They don't know what you sound like. All they know is that there's, a username or a large random generated number attached to your name, and then an address that you connect to. And of course, geo-tracking your IP and stuff is blocked, so you don't know who it is and what they're talking about. And I definitely think there's something going on as far as like privacy is concerned. And I think not only is our government, CIA, FBI, police, are using this different, metadata and stuff, but they're also selling this metadata to different companies so that they can, push different advertisements towards you to try to get you to buy stuff. Now, luckily I've been in the tech world long enough where I can kind of recognize this, which has been great. And also I've kind of researched enough to where I know a little bit of what I'm talking about with this. And so not only are they using it, but future employers are using it. Like, they're demanding that you put all your information on LinkedIn. They're demanding that, they can, and it's all public, so they can go and look at you on Facebook and see what you're all about, see your thoughts and beliefs, see what kind of pictures you take, and then they use that to kind of decide, okay, well, is this somebody I could really work with, and I'll tell you a little story. So I've been looking for different employment, because the whole package delivery thing, it's definitely a young man's job. I'm continually working towards getting in a place where I feel a bit more healthy, so it's not affecting my body, and I feel like my body's deteriorating, jumping in and out of my car, going to the door, dropping a package, taking my picture, doing that 100 and so times a day. Not only putting miles on my car, but spending more money on repairs and oil changes and more gas, and with all the wonderful rising of the gas prices is always wonderful, and it makes you feel great that he did it. But it's really interesting because I made mention that I had a podcast, and he asked me what the name of it was, and I gave it to him. And leading up to, these 2 interviews I had with this, local company, and it's a job that looks really interesting, and I think I could, do really good at it. I feel like I interview pretty well. There isn't a job I haven't gotten through interviewing. So it's really interesting. They're just like, whoa, okay, well, are you on Facebook? Are you on LinkedIn? Are you on these things? And I'm just like, why does that matter? Like, if you're interacting with me, why can't you figure out through looking at my resume if you think I'd be a good fit, which I think clearly I was a pretty good fit. But then, like, after the second interview, they're just like, yeah, well, I don't know when I'm going to be in town, so I'm going to go ahead and I'll let you know as soon as I know. And that way we can get you in here and, check out, the operation and stuff. And of course I followed up 2 days later, just say, hey, I'm still really interested. Are we going to look at, check stuff out next week? You're going to be in town. What does that look like? Maybe not all those words, but, and then of course I got back, well, I don't know when I'm going to be in town. And of course, to me, that means you're not the guy we're looking for, and I don't have the cojones to just tell you you're not the person we're looking for. And I think that's, because I'm somebody who has hired and fired people, like I kind of understand like the process, and, if they really think that you're a good candidate, they'll kind of fast track you and get you to the next interview. And I was proceeding hopefully to the 3rd interview. I don't think the 3rd interview is going to happen just because of the language that was given to me. The second time when I asked, hey, I'm still interested. What are you guys thinking? We can get together and check out the operation. And, it's just the same runaround. And I think it's a disservice, especially not only when you're hiring people for like management positions, but I think definitely hiring people for, your frontline positions, I think is really important to get the right people on your bus, like so that you can go and, just take care of work. These are the people you want to go to battle with, however you want to phrase it or whatever the case may be. And so when you're going through the hiring process, like it's really important to just say, the more we've been talking, I just don't really feel that you're the right fit for us. And I really appreciate your time. And, I know this is, big thing for you, and we appreciate you and your application, but right now we just don't feel like you're a right fit. I think that's better to do that and kind of come in at I guess on a scale of 1 to 10, like come in at like an 8 or a 9 on the honesty level here, because it sucks when you get the runaround, and it sucks when people just push you off and ghost you. Like that's the worst. And that's kind of been my experience with with different interviews. They'll reach out with you, through an email or through like a application like Indeed or Jobs.com or whatever these different like applications are. They'll reach out to you that way, but they won't give you a call or text message. And so, and that bugs me because I'm one of those people who are kind of trying to step back a little bit from technology and seeing technology more like a tool rather than a part of me. Like I really feel like there needs to be an important separation between self, like the physical world and not self into the digital world. Like, and what's interesting too is that sometimes we even like act differently, especially if you don't have a camera and a microphone on. Like you do act differently when you're playing, when you're playing games, when you're in chat rooms. I think you do almost like embody a different personality because there's a little bit more of a buffer, a little bit more of a barrier when you start communicating with other people. And so, I don't know. And it also bugs when people aren't really that interested, like in your job. Like if you go to an interview, let's say I'm interviewing you, and you say, yeah, this is going to be really great. I'm going to start the hiring on process and everything. I'm like, okay, awesome. I will be in touch with you and I'll text you and email you. And then like 24 hours go by and I text you and email you. And I give you a call, leave you a message. Hey, so-and-so, let's go ahead and get this going. You said you wanted this job. And then it didn't happen. I think employers and, prospective employers and prospective employees should just be a little bit more honest with each other. I feel like that's really, really important to just be able to say, look, you're not a good fit, or even say, that's not really going to work for me. And I feel like I've done a fairly good job at that. I think I could always be better. Like I did an interview for a warehouse worker. I went ahead and I applied for a management position. It's supposed to be like $18+ an hour. And I get there and they're like, oh yeah, actually we filled that months ago. For some reason that's still up there. And so we're actually only applying, hiring people for forklift work or a regular packer. We need those people, not that. I'm like, okay, well, what does it pay? What we're looking at here. They're like, oh yeah, it's only $12 an hour. I'm just like, that's not going to work for me. Can you do 16? Nope, we can't do that. Okay. Well, what does the schedule look like? Oh, well, it's this weird, rotating schedule. So you'll have 2 weekends on, 2 weekends off. And I'm just like, nah, that doesn't work for me. I need to actually have a regular schedule. Oh, and we're also only working at nights. All right. Well, I appreciate your guys' time. That's not going to work for me and my family. So I'm not, going to waste any more of your time. So thank you. And I'll let you guys, look for somebody else. And I don't think that should be a bad thing. I think people should be able to be honest about this kind of stuff, and people just go, okay, well, that sucks. I was looking forward to that job, or, it'd be nice to have a job now and keep looking, but, I'll just move on to the next one and just keep going. And I know that's sometimes hard for people, especially in this day and age, especially it seems that because we've been trying so hard to walk on eggshells around everybody and each other, it's more and more difficult to come to terms and face to face for, I'm sorry, it's not going to work for us, or it's not going to work for you, or you're not what we're looking for, or you're missing a lot of experience, or hey, we're really looking for somebody who has certain academic achievements, which I think is, ridiculous nowadays. And yeah, that's just kind of where I'm at with that kind of stuff. So before I go into my last topic, I might actually get to push to 50 minutes here. Cool. It might be easier to do an hour than I thought. I guess if I ramble enough, I'll fall into something that kind of streams into a stream of consciousness, and hopefully it's coming out of my brain into your brain, and you go, oh, that's interesting. Let it rattle around your brain a little and just dump it back out. Anyway, I digress. What was I going to talk about? Well, I guess it wasn't that interesting, so I'm going to go ahead and just jump into my last topic. I kind of want to talk a little bit, about this. This is kind of like far right stuff where people kind of make fun of people who decide to go, along with this woke narratives, go push through their ideologies, hiring people because of the color of their skin or their backgrounds, and not necessarily if they're the right person for the job and things like that. And I think this is just another example of, kind of getting woke, going broke is the terminology. And it makes me laugh because I just think it's funny. But I do believe it does make, things a little bit more polarizing. And I think it's like in jest, the right is kind of making fun of the left and the radical left, and I get it, and I don't blame all the lefties out there. Like I believe it is a small, these are small groups and individuals who are on the radical side, and I think there are a lot more left leaning, Democrats out there who are really good people and have a really good head on their shoulders, very, very smart, and I'm sure they have Republicans and right leaning individuals who are also of those same thought lines and beliefs, and they can come together and agree to disagree and still be friends and still live, and still have neighbors and still be fine with what's going on in the world, in their neck of the woods, I guess I should say, not in the world. And so when it comes to Resident Evil, this is the new series on Netflix. It just recently came out. And I'll be honest, I didn't read any of the the materials as far as like comic books or books, if those are out there. I lightly dabbled in the games a long time ago. They're gore games, just not something that I get into or get excited about. So I didn't really play those, as well as I grew up in a very religious and a very Christian centric household. So I didn't get to play a lot of the games. Like, I'm actually really surprised that we got to play games like Diablo and stuff like that, which, you know, I think it was one of those things where I had to sit down with my parents and be like, look, we're not killing people or killing monsters. Like, we're defeating Diablo and his demons. So, like, doesn't this kind of go along with our belief system? But, you know, that's neither here nor there. And so I sat down and I watched it. And let me go ahead and pull up IMDb. Oh goodness, don't get me started on House of Dragons. Oh my goodness. Resident Evil 2022. I think this is it. Yep, this is it. Okay. So now, for those of you who have been watching the channel a lot and who have been, you know, kind of like hearing all of our thoughts and feelings on certain things, like, you know, that we're really cool with our LBGT, you know, LBG individuals. You know that we're cool with our gay friends. Like, we have you know, a couple of gay couples who, you know, we go and we hang out every once in a while. We'll go and get, you know, we'll get wine, we'll get food, or, you know, I think we watched the Super Bowl at one of their homes. We have a gay couple who, they're just a couple, you know, anyways, he's a queen. They're really fun. Like, I really do enjoy our gay friends, and I'm really grateful that they have found somebody who they can share their lives with, and, you know, they love each other. And, you know, as long as you're two consenting adults and you have the capacity to consent and you guys are cool with each other, like, you know, you do you. Like, I really don't care. And so with this particular Resident Evil, it does portray a couple. The kind of the bad guy in the story is this lady, and she's married to the other lady, which I believe is a clone. You know, spoilers. And what's really interesting, especially with a lot of these shows and films, is that they don't really spend a lot of time developing the relationships. And that's actually a really big turnoff for me, because if there is a gay or a lesbian couple, if you develop the characters and you develop the story with their relationships, like, I can get into it, and I'm just like totally cool with it. But what's interesting is just like, and they're gay, and they're lesbians, and it's like, oh, and by the way, they're trans. It's like, okay, you didn't really develop any of that story high arc, and so it's really hard for me to go, okay, well then, how did we get from A to C here? You didn't share with me, you know, the beep in between the parts that you got this person to this, you know, where we're at right now. And so that kind of bugs me. And to this day, Schitt's Creek has been the best, like gay bi, like, you know, relationship development centric around David's character. It's been the best. Like, if you can give me a story with that kind of character progression and that kind of character development, like, he went from, you know, with whatever her name is, and then eventually ending up with, I can see his face. Doggone it. I'm terrible with names. But I'm about to look it up now. I misspelled shit. Schitt's Creek. What do you do? Goodness gracious. So it was David and where are you? Patrick. That's right. David and Patrick. Good grief. My wife literally was just watching the show, like, you know, a few months back. I don't understand. But then the struggle with the relationship with Stevie, and the struggle in, like, kind of coming out and figuring out, like, who you are and who you love, and, you know, why you're attracted to this person, why they're so great. Like that kind of development is very important. It's not just, and they're gay. That doesn't work in a story. That doesn't work in a story. And I feel like that's really important when it comes to straight couples as well. Like it doesn't matter if it's a gay or straight couple. If you don't develop the relationship, we can't connect to those characters. It's very, very, very difficult. And so there's not really a lot of development when it comes to that relationship and that couple. It's just that they are. Which the only problem I have with it is that they just didn't develop the characters. Like the fact that in this story that they were a same-sex couple doesn't bother me. It's the character development. Just want to be very, very clear. And so the storyline kind of follows two stories. The first story is kind of following the fallout after this outbreak occurs with this apparent drug that, turns people psychotic and like basically zombies. And then the other story is following these two girls that are kind of coming into this neighborhood with their father, Albert. And I'll be honest, Albert's character probably was the most interesting out of all the characters. And then it takes place where these characters are moving into this neighborhood and they start talking about how bad the white people are in the neighborhoods. And I'm just like, okay. It's just like, all right, well, what is this? Who's this movie for? Like, here's the thing. You know who's watching TV shows and movies mostly? Like predominantly? White men. By and large, white men are watching a lot of these movies and TV series. And so I think it's really interesting that these companies like completely alienate like their viewership. They've done that with Star Wars. I'm terrified that they're going to do that with this new Lord of the Rings prequel. I think they're doing that with House of Dragons. Like they had a scene in there where basically this couple from another house was basically going to give this king their 12-year-old daughter to unite their houses to make them stronger. And the kid is just like casually, oh yeah, but you don't have to bed me until, my mom said you don't have to bed me until I'm 14. I'm just like, is that seriously what's happening? Now, don't get me wrong. From the original Game of Thrones, the whole ancestral relationship between the brother and sister, Cersei and her brother, I can't think of it right now. I'm terrible with names. Like, yeah, that was pretty gross. I'll be honest. I didn't connect with it. I didn't think it was really that interesting or that relevant. And it's just, these kinds of things are not okay to normalize. It's not okay for these things to be in here. And then a lot of people will say, oh, well, that's because of, these radical Christians and stuff like that. And it's really not. I think people who even believe in God, who aren't Christian people would agree that that's disagreeable and that's not the cultural norm and it's not okay. Sorry, my nose was itching. And so Resident Evil follows these two different lines, and it follows these two girls in developing their relationship when they're younger, and then kind of following the other story where we see them grown up. And I'm gonna say it, like there's a lot of anti-white in there. There's a lot of like anti-family. There's a lot of just normalizing like really gross stuff. It's not great at all. And some of these TV shows, like even on like Prime and stuff like that, are showing like really gross things that aren't helping people in general. And I'm not saying like every movie out there needs to be helping families and bolstering, unity between man and wife and couples and stuff like that. I mean, there's shows for that. I get it. But this show is literally just like, it's wokeism, it's ideologies, it's radical left leaning, is also showing like these kids like don't have to ever get in trouble because their dad's there always to get him out of it because he has some kind of power. It really bugs me. And on top of that, like even watching the Resident Evil films from, when Milla Jovovich was involved with like 3 or 4 different films. Now, don't get me wrong, they weren't great films. I mean, we probably could categorize it between like a 6 and a 7, like not complete hot woke garbage, but also not a dumpster fire. But yeah, like when I saw the announcement that, Netflix Resident Evil has been canceled, it literally hasn't even been out a month yet. July 14th. So it's literally been out maybe a month and a half, and it's just talked about it being canceled. Doesn't surprise me. It really doesn't surprise me. Like, the whole get woke, go broke thing is like really transpiring before our eyes, especially now within, so many movies are actually pushing these very radical, very left-leaning ideologies, and it goes over identity politics. It's really pushing critical race theory, and all these things are not only going into our movies and films and TV shows, but they're also being pressed very, very hard in, schools as early as preschool and kindergarten. They're trying to teach it to these kids, like trying to say that the poor white kids are bad because of the color of their skin. That's racism. Like, blatantly. And what sucks is that these voices are being perpetuated, they're being amplified, they're being pushed towards the front, and then those individuals who disagree with it, who are even talking about it. And don't get me wrong, before I left TikTok, well, I'm still technically on TikTok, but I don't have it on my phone anymore. I don't have it ready. I just post and I leave. I don't watch other videos or anything like that. Just do it through the web browser. I think is really important for me because I can get lost in that. But then, like, watching and like following all these other individuals, even Black Americans who their voices are being silenced, and those voices are not being perpetuated, not because of the color of their skin, because that's not what it's all about. It's about power. It's about control. And that's what's really bothering me about these different things, especially these different films and TV shows. And I'll be honest, like, the kids and their acting was probably the better part of the duo. The older 2 girls were not great. The antagonist, her name, I think is it Evelyn? Is that her name? I think her name is Evelyn. Like, her acting was literally forgettable. Like, every time like she was not on screen, I was just like, wait a minute, who's the bad guy in all this? And like, look, things seem very, very shaky right now. Things feel like they're falling apart. I feel like the family, is being attacked, especially with this whole idea of like men can be women and women can be men. I think our identity as human beings are being attacked. I feel like these attacks are coming out mostly to cause divide and to keep people in power. I don't think it really has anything to do with it, because I think, like I say, in a bubble, in a vacuum, I don't care if you're trans. I don't care if you're gay. It doesn't matter to me. But if you come towards me and you're like, hey, I'm okay, you're gonna tell me you're a trans woman when you're biologically a male, that's gonna be hard for me to get to, because it doesn't make sense. And like I say, like, because I do believe that there is some kind of higher power, and we call that God. Like, I don't consider myself a religious person, but I do believe that there is some kind of divinity in all of this. Like, there is a purpose for us in this world, in this life. And I think we're going to figure out what's going to happen once we get onto the other side. But at the same time, according to nature, like, that's completely going against your nature as a human being, saying that you're one thing and not the other. But I digress. I really would like Hollywood, these different streaming companies, and I'll be honest with you, Netflix is getting there too. At least they're just canceling stuff outright. I wonder if Sandman's going to get canceled, because that's a big love letter especially with the, fully grown naked males, being naked in front of children. When it comes to children, I'm not okay with that. Even portraying it in films, like, I don't like it. I don't like it. Anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. I would love to hear your thoughts and feelings about these topics, so don't forget to throw down a comment down below. Hit that like button, and hopefully we've earned your subscription today, so don't forget to subscribe and turn on your notifications. So with that being said, from my family to yours, I bid you a good night. Hello everyone, Jay Rhymes with the Periodic Review. Today's video is sponsored by viewers like you, so thank you. Hopefully we've earned your subscription today, so don't forget to click that subscribe button and hit that damn bell to turn on your notifications so you don't miss a content release. Check out the video links at the end of every video to view our previous content, as well as visit the description section for more links to enjoy. Thank you so much for watching today's video, and from my family to yours, good night.